Hello, my name is Ken Small and I'm an architect in Las Vegas, Nevada, and I'm here today making some videos on frequently asked questions that have come up in the over 20 years I've been working in the Las Vegas area. And so in this video I just want to talk to you about how to design and build a restaurant and what's normally done to do that. There's lots of different ways that you can design a restaurant and do construction of a restaurant, but I'm just going to talk to you about one typical way, and there are some other options definitely beyond this, but if you're a beginner to this process and you just need to know how do most people do it, then this is the video for you. So normally in the construction of a restaurant, you may be building either a ground-up building or moving into a tenant space in an existing building. And this will address the eventualities of either one. So the first thing is, when you're starting to do a restaurant, it would be a good idea to just get out a plain 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper and make a list of what it is that you want. So of course you're going to talk about the kind of cuisine, Mexican food, Chinese food, you name it, donut place, coffee shop, and then go through the things that you know on your own. So you don't need to try to spread out into things that you don't know, but for instance, if you're going to have a coffee shop, then you're going to talk about the different pieces of equipment that you need in your kitchen. Actually, it's any restaurant. So whatever it is that you know you're going to need in your kitchen, you can go online and download a PDF file for each of the pieces of equipment that you need. So if you have a espresso machine, or you have a 3-compartment sink, or whatever it is that you need, make a list of all of it and download the information from the manufacturer that you might use. You're not making a commitment to buy from a specific manufacturer, but if you have a piece of equipment, it has certain electrical requirements, certain plumbing requirements. We need to know that, and we have to start somewhere. So if you decide to change it later on, okay, but at least let's start with something. So find all the equipment that you need. If you're a back of house sort of person, then you can start in the kitchen and do that. For the front of house sort of person, then go the other way and list what are your needs in the front. I need to be able to seat 100 people, 50 people, 25 people. People in our restaurant are usually sitting at a table for 2, or you can say percentages, 20% tables for 2, 80% tables for 4. I need a banquet room. I need a waiting area with room for 5 people to sit. List out all the things, what are your needs. And then if you have an idea of how big a restaurant you want by looking at a comparable restaurant, then by all means include that total of information. If you don't, that's okay. If you don't have the information that I just asked about, we can proceed without it, but just trying to do it optimally. Those would be 2 sets of data that ultimately will have to become known before you can build a restaurant. So if you do not know what you want for your kitchen, say that you are doing something comparable to common restaurants, then a lot of times people use a kitchen designer. SSA, my architectural firm, can do kitchen design, but typically kitchen designs are a specialty like structural engineering, and so you would then hire a kitchen designer to do whatever it is. So the vast majority of projects, we start with a client who knows what they want, and doesn't use outside consultants for the kitchen equipment that they're going to use. And then SSA will do the layout for the kitchen after finding out what the kitchen equipment is. And then on from that, we're going to take the information and we're going to do a general layout based on whatever space you're interested in either buying or renting. So if you start with a tenant improvement space, an existing vacant space in an existing building, then we'll do a preliminary design sketch off of that. And if you're going to buy a piece of property and build a ground-up restaurant, then we'll do a preliminary design sketch for that property. So let's just take the former first, because it's the most common case, and I'll give you a quick look at a sketch that we did for a little coffee shop. So this is the sketch that we did, and it shows you all the things that were important to the client. And we don't get into a tremendous amount of detail, but we show where are the tables, where are the chairs, where's the kitchen. In the case of that particular restaurant, there are 2 eating areas and 2 food prep areas. And so they had a reason why they wanted it to be that way, so we got it to work that way. And then once you have your preliminary design sketch, you should also have developed a menu that works with the equipment that you have. And we can take that preliminary design sketch and show it to a reputable contractor and ask him for an estimate, or her for an estimate of how much it will cost to build that restaurant. And they can give you a ballpark figure of what it will cost, so that you can see if you're in the right financial range for what it is you plan to do. And then typically on a restaurant, on the public side, we highly recommend hiring us to do interior design. And if you have your own interior designer, we'll work with them also. But to make the restaurant attractive, because no matter how good the food is, if it's not attractive enough to draw people in the front door to try the food, then the restaurant will fail. So in the interior design process, we select the interior finishes, whatever they are, and we put together a board, and then usually we suggest that you give that board with all the finishes and the preliminary design sketch back to the landlord before signing the lease. And the reason why it's before signing the lease is if you need money, you can ask the landlord to make a contribution, a build-out allowance. If they see it's going to be a nice restaurant and something that they want, then they might give you a build-out allowance if they haven't already. And then the other reason is that there will be considerable cutting up of the floor slab and modifications to the tenant improvement space, and you want to make sure that your landlord is going to allow it, particularly if you're changing things on the entry side of the building. So that is when you're in your ideal negotiating position with the landlord and before you sign the lease. And also, in most leases in the Las Vegas area, they only want to give you about 90 to 120 days after you sign the lease before you start paying rent. So the time it takes is often a lot longer than the time that they allow. And so that means you may want to do this initial preliminary design process and possibly all the way up to interior design without signing a lease. Is it possible someone could come in and sign a lease and take the space out from under you while you're doing that? Yes, it is. But if the preliminary design process without interior design costs less than a month's rent, then all you're risking is your preliminary design process cost. And you can shorten the timeline from when you sign to when you move in. The next step in the process, after having done the preliminary design, is construction documents. And so we draw architectural, what everybody calls, plans, and you approve them. And then we hire either mechanical, electrical, plumbing engineers, or we may draw some of those things ourselves in-house, or you may have subcontractors assist you in preparing subcontractor design build drawings. And when we have all the drawings together, they have to go down to the health department. This is a service that we offer, taking it all down to the health department and working through the process with them of getting their approval. Normally all we need from you is your health card and your menu, and we go through the process of approval at the health department. Then we go down to the building department, and it's the same thing. We go through the review process and get it all approved, and then during that review process with the building department, you're bidding general contractors. So when your plans are through the approval process and the permit is ready to be pulled, you have bids from your general contractors and you have your plans done, and you can sign a general contract and get your general contractor to start. A couple of the questions, and by the way, rarely if ever does a restaurant, even the smallest one, get built in less than 90 days. Along the way there are a couple of questions that people ask, rules that have changed lately and things like that. The first thing is, do I need a grease trap or equivalent of a grease trap, which is built outside the tenant improvement, or if I'm building on my own lot? The answer is almost every restaurant in the Southern Nevada area now has either a grease trap that they're being built now, has either a grease trap or something similar. And so they say if you have a 3-compartment sink, then you're going to end up having to have a grease trap. And so you may then ask, well, what if it's just a coffee shop, I'm not cooking any meat or anything like that, do I still have to have a grease trap? I'm going to say, for a ballpark thumbnail view video, the odds of you not needing a grease trap are almost zero. So there can be situations, but we don't see very many of them, and they're now asking for the equivalent of a grease trap in a coffee shop now. So that is external to the building, and if you're only familiar with residential construction, it's just a big tank on the outside of the building that keeps the contaminants coming out of the sewer line from contaminating the public water supply when it goes through the sewage treatment plant. So rather expensive, probably beginning around $15,000, $15,000. And sometimes those are designed and installed by subcontractors, and other times those are installed and designed by civil engineers. And this again depends on the kind of project, the scope of it, the location, and some of the other things. So be ready for that. If you're interested in building a restaurant, please come and see me. My name is Ken Small. My phone number in Las Vegas is 702-873-1718. As always, our initial consultation is free in our office. And I do ask you to watch our other videos and please like them. Have a great day.